How are you? Welcome. Welcome to Crazy for You Live. I've been told by a lot of people that I shouldn't call it that. I should call it what it is, which is, I guess, a webcast, because we are here. It's like a podcast, but a video, and we're here every Wednesday. So I guess from now on, I'll be calling it the Crazy for You webcast. So welcome to the Crazy for You webcast. I'm glad that you could join us. Anyway, so we're here every Wednesday night, except on very special occasions when we have a special, wonderful guest from Great Britain. And today is one of those days that we have David McLeod, the wonderful David McLeod from Rowan Yarns. And as you know, David is the brand manager for Rowan, and he gets to do fun things like play with yarn and decide what yarns Rowan is going to have in their line, and work with the designers. And it's just an all-around fabulous kind of job. So I'm super excited to have him here. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be going through some of the Rowan core yarns. And when I say core yarns, I mean those yarns that form the base of Rowan's fiber collection. And they support and are supported by the designs for that season. And I'm super excited about the designs this season for Rowan, and especially for, my favorite mode at Rowan, which is just a beautiful, fashion reflective, contemporary line that is designed by some of Rowan's, traditional designers like Martin Story and Lisa Richardson, as well as the very fresh and modern company Quail Studios. So they have so many designs, so many little collections that support these beautiful, beautiful yarns. And if you had a chance to order your Rowan autumn winter tasting kit, then you will see that you have, I think, 9 different yarns for tasting today, and we're going to be going through those. And David's going to give us a chance to sort of hear about those yarns and kind of a little bit about how they came to be. And we'll look at a lot of stuff. And if there's a comment that you have or a question that you have about the particular yarn or whatever, please put it in the comments. I'm excited to have you here, and I'm excited to have David here to help chat about the yarn. So let me get a second and bring him up on the screen. So, all right. Good morning, David. How are you?
Figure out which way I need to go.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Good morning, all.
Yeah.
Good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you for those of you that have done both.
Yes. So David noticed when we were chatting a little bit before we started, that I'm in a new space. So this is, I'm actually webcasting from the shop. So this is exciting. And if you are local, I would love for you to come in and see the display. We are surrounded by Rowan yarns on 3 sides. So it's super exciting. And let me take just a minute to welcome our folks that are visiting. Good morning, Amelia and Jamie and Eveline and Michael, Pat, thank you. Gwen, yes, welcome. And Jal. All right. So wonderful. I know that I have sent the tasting kits out to most of you guys, and so let's go ahead and get started. How have things been for you, David? How's everything with this season's launch?
Yeah, well, this season's launch has been amazingly well received in the market. We've been really pleased with how everybody's accepted it. I think there's a really good cross-section of design out there. Like you said, there's the core range and then there's the mode, and I think there is something for everybody. You just have to look at the full season for us. We're really happy with it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's really cohesive, and the palette is nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, and those of you who had a chance to see the 2 previous webcasts that I did with David and Trisha, you had a chance to see the designs for this season, and I really do. I think they're spectacular, and I'm so excited. I have so much I want to make right now,
Yeah.
So yeah, so apparently David I wasn't clear that we were going to be going through all the yarns. So this is going to be very, very impromptu.
Well,
But
hopefully, as brand manager, I should know my stuff. So,
well, I'm sure. So the first one I wanted to look at, and you guys have this in your kit, is Cashmere Haze, which I think is such a special yarn. Tell me what you think makes this. So if you have this at home and you're going to knit this, you're going to want to knit this probably on a 5. This is like a sport weight yarn. It looks really fine, but I think it has enough heft to be knitted on its own and make a fabric, a wearable fabric.
It's one of those yarns that you can knit on a multitude of tensions because it can be knitted really open, and because it's got the haze, it can actually form quite still a nice knitted fabric. So Cashmere Haze is one of those ones that we set out to find. There's 2 ways that yarns come in. We go to Pitti and we see the spinners in Italy and they show us their developments, and that leads to a new yarn. And sometimes myself, Sharon, and some of the designers come to the initial kickoff of a season and say, how about a haze like Kid Silk Haze but with a bit of cashmere? And so that kicks off for us, and then we develop that with a spinner and work through the process of it. And Cashmere Haze is one of those where we wanted to just do Kid Silk Haze with a little bit of more luxury in it, and hence Cashmere Haze was born.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful to knit with. You know, it is one of those really light and fine yarns. I think you'll find as you're, you guys are knitting and tasting this. I love Kid Silk Haze, but I think part of it's a challenge to knit with because it is so fine, so gossamer that you don't get a lot of feedback, in your hands. Whereas the Cashmere Haze, you totally do. But I wanted to show everybody this garment.
Yeah, beautiful.
Which was in last season's collection.
That's right.
Just lovely, lovely. I actually had a chance to see that at the retailers event in Philadelphia. This is knitted in Cashmere Haze, and you guys, this is just the most delicious garment in the world.
I mean, Cashmere Haze takes that lace stitch really well because it's not quite as hazy or as hairy, let's say, as Kid Silk Haze. They both do a very nice job, but they both do different things. And Cashmere Haze takes that lace stitch really well and still manages to keep the definition of the lace stitch in your garment or in your knit. So it's really good for that.
Is that because the Kid Silk Haze is like brushed up, or what is?
It's it's the different mix of fiber and the way it works. There's slightly more sticky out. This is not really a technical term, but there's more sticky out fibers in Kid Silk Haze. Cashmere Haze is much softer, and I think you've said that. It feels softer through your hands. Also, with cashmere, as you knit with cashmere and put it through your hands and put it through your needles, it relaxes and softens as well. So, and the more you work with it, the better it is. So, I have to say, Cashmere Haze is one of those ones where we played with the fiber, played with it, the spinner, and when it came back, we were like, "Oh, we've got this right." It just, it's one of those ones where the idea in your head actually comes out in the yarn, and it worked really well.
And you say, "Nailed it."
Yeah, well, we all high five each other.
That's great. I would love to see that. So I think we call that term, I don't know what you call it, but in the shop, I call that when the yarn kind of changes and grows as you knit it and as you work with it and as you wear it and wash it. I call that bloom. What do you call that? Do you call that bloom?
Oh, you call bloom, as in it blooms as you work with it?
Yes. It kind of opens up, like when you think about it, when it's when it's first in the skein, it's like a little bud. It's tight, and then as you work with it, the fibers kind of open up. Cashmere does it, and I know a lot of Angora.
Yeah, exactly. Angora does exactly the same thing. Yep.
Yeah, so kind of bloom. So Cashmere Haze, I think you'll find as you're knitting this that it's going to bloom a little bit, and you're just going to find this wonderful, delicious fabric.
With all cashmere, it's better with a bit of handle on it. That's the way it goes. So
yeah. So there is an entire collection dedicated to Cashmere Haze this season. It's all the Haze yarns, but it has several Cashmere Haze designs in it, and they're just beautiful. And if you are a garment knitter, or even if you're not, I think it's a fairly simply shaped garment. I recommend that little lace top, which is,
Yeah.
it would be great as a little, kind of transitional spring, fall garment, or an evening piece, So because we really
Or
go
daytime into evening, which is the current massive trend that everybody's predicting, is that we're all going to go out to work and then go straight out in the evening. We're not going to come home anymore because we've spent all this time at home.
absolutely. Just pull on some black pants with it and it'll be
Yeah,
fabulous.
yeah,
Yeah, put on
exactly.
your earrings out. All good. So are you at home? Are you knitting the Cashmere Haze? Are you liking it? Tell me what you think. Let me see what
We've
I
had
can
some
see.
stunning, and Haze is delicious and
Oh,
wonderful.
good.
All the right words, I have to say.
Just what you want to hear. On my
Exactly, yeah.
glasses. So yeah, so that's really good. And as you know, we go through these fairly quickly. There are a lot of yarns to go through, and so you probably won't complete your knitting of each of our little samples. I've tried to be super generous so that you get a decent sized little swatch when you finish. But if you do not have a chance to knit all the way through all of your sample of each yarn, don't worry. This is live now, but later on you can have a chance to look at it on YouTube and kind of go through at your leisure and knit with the one and whatever. And it might be that it's just kind of fun to watch and knit a little bit and then go back and do it, on your own time. So the next one that I thought we would look at is Alpaca Classic, which seems to have just, for me anyway, it's everywhere. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, Alpaca
Yeah.
Classic is everywhere. And I think it's beautiful. So let's talk about Alpaca Classic, which is 50% alpaca and 43% cotton. That's an interesting kind of fiber combination, I think.
Yeah, 57 alpaca, 43 cotton.
Is that what I said?
No, you said 50. It means we're a short
I'm sorry,
7%, but it doesn't matter.
Yes. I'm sorry. My brain is full.
It's okay. How this Alpaca Classic came about the other way. So we went to Florence to the Pitti show where all the spinners show their new developments. And we had this idea that we needed something alpaca. This was 2 years ago now, I think, and everybody was showing alpaca fiber. Everybody was doing something with alpaca, but we were really keen to have an alpaca that kind of still had a bit of haze and still was very light and very light on the needles, light to work with, but we could actually bring out to the market at a more reasonable cost, shall we say. So we spent a lot of time. This was the second day. We have 2 days and it's full of appointments. And this must have been about the last appointment. And the spinner brought this out and put it on the table. And I think actually myself and Sharon, the brand director, both grabbed for it at the same time because we're like, oh my God, we think this is it. So this basically what it is the cotton forms the inner tube. So there's a tube, I'm sorry, like that, and then the alpaca fiber is shot through it, and it's then the alpaca fills the tube, and you get the alpaca fibers coming out through the cotton. So this is one of the cases where new developments in spin and how they spin yarn is moving forward all the time, and then we come and we see how it affects, and it means you can get these beautiful natural fibers but still keep a really lightweight yarn to knit with. Alpaca Classic has been an absolute stormer for us. It is loved globally, and I think it's for those reasons. It's got all that lovely softness, but none of the heaviness, and people are just loving knitting with it. Also, because it's a tube, it relaxes back into your stitch, so it does take color work really well and relaxes and fills the stitch, so it gives you a really beautiful knitted fabric.
Yeah, I think also, I'm going to grab a skein of it here. It manages to be, you take two fibers that are not very elastic.
Yeah,
and it's managed to kind of make that in a stitch that is going to hold its shape. I've never seen, never seen any Alpaca Classic garment look saggy or droopy or whatever.
Exactly. And that's the modern thing about the modern ways of spin, these chainette constructions, the way they work. That elasticity in a yarn means that if you knit it, wash and wear it, it's going to last, it's going to keep its shape, it's going to work for you, and you spent all that time, all that money buying it, knitting it, wearing a beautiful garment. You know that you're going to have it for years to come.
Yeah, I don't think that that this fiber is at all pilly either, which is
No.
one of the
Again,
benefits of
yeah.
this construction. Yeah. It's sort of hard to tell that it is a tube construction because it is so fine, but I guess when you
Yeah.
look at it, you can see that it really is. And I think too, like you say, it does fill up the stitches. So you could probably push the gauge on this a smidge if you wanted to.
Yeah, you could knit it slightly tighter or slightly looser, because it does relax back in as well. That's the thing.
Right. It's beautiful. So I have a couple comments here. Let's see. Okay. All right, B, I'm sorry that hasn't gotten there, Canada. We did send that early, but I know that it's been tough. So I do hope that it will get there. So yeah, I think this is pretty. If you are knitting, tell me what you think about this. I think you'll notice that in last season and in this season, you'll see Alpaca Classic knitted both singly and double-stranded. Oh, I have a garment that's double-stranded. Hang on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's using it double-stranded is part of because it's so light, you can use it double-stranded and it doesn't get too heavy for the garment as well.
Say again?
So that always works. I'm just saying because because it's light, you can double-strand and it doesn't get too heavy.
No, this is this is one of the designs by Kim Hargreaves, one of my favorites. And this is double-stranded, and it's, this is a lot of skeins of yarn, and it's a big, I don't know if you can see, it's a big garment. It's a long sort of coat, and it's very, very light and beautiful. And I know that that's a trunk show garment that probably had a good bit of handling.
That one in particular will be light to wear, but it'll be really warm in the winter as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so okay, Anne says, I can't keep up, but Haze is the thinnest yarn I've ever used. Yeah. So it is, it is a fine yarn, but it's not so fine that
but what I would suggest, Dan, is you try it on a larger needle and just see how you're stitched, because you can knit it on a bigger needle and it just gives you this lightweight open fabric as well. So maybe that's another swatch after, this conversation, but it's really worth trying.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You can see how light it is because it has a solid 132 yards, but the weight is only 25 grams. So it's half the weight of a similar gauged yarn. So,
it goes on forever, as we call it.
Yeah, beautiful. A lot of value. You know what I mean? I love a value.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So the next one we're going to look at is Alpaca Soft Dk, which is, to me, just one of my most favorite. I'll call it a basic. It's not really basic, but its spin is very traditional. So
yeah, it is one of our more traditional yarns. I have to say that it's, there's no particular development in technology there. This is one that we developed with a spinner because we just wanted that a good traditional yarn that still had the natural fiber and kept the softness there. 70% virgin wool and 30% alpaca. I don't know if you know, but virgin wool just means that it's the first clip from the sheep. So it's the first time ever. And what actually that means is it's softer. It's usually a lower micron, and that's how they count the softness of a yarn and of a fiber. And it's softer because it is the first clip, because it's never been cut before. So it's a natural softness on a fiber.
So like a baby sheep, a lamb.
Well, they don't clip as babies.
Okay.
They're usually 1.5 to 2 years old, and they're fully grown at that point. So they don't clip super young. But that's why I'm saying it's the first clip off a sheep. It's not a baby clip or virgin just means the first clip.
Isn't that funny? I didn't know that. I always thought virgin wool meant it hadn't been used before.
No, it's basically what it is. Yeah.
I always learn things.
Yeah, well, that's it. Because if you imagine they've cut a fiber once, it does have a sharper edge. If that's not cut, it's softer, and that's actually why the virgin wool is softer than normal.
So what's the difference between, they used to use a term lamb's wool. What is that?
Lamb's wool is within the first the first 18 months of its life. So it's the first clip. It's before the first 2 years, because a sheep really isn't considered fully grown until 2 years old.
Okay.
Now, the reason I know all this is because I am a farmer's son. So,
but that's what makes you so wonderfully
yeah.
suited to this role.
It's what clicks my interest in this fiber, and I can talk to the spinners with authority about what's happening and what's going on, and I also know the right questions to make sure that they have followed the sourcing chain through, and that everybody in the process, including the animals, are treated fair and well.
So important. I mean, that's so important.
It's a massive thing for me, and I can't, because of my background, because of my history, where I grew up. It's just something that I always have by my side, if you like, and it guides me a lot.
So one of the things I think a lot of people wonder is, everywhere you see merino, merino, merino. This is clearly not a merino, but
Yep.
There is, people don't necessarily understand. You were talking about micron count. So one of the things that makes merino so nice is that the extra fine merino that you see is like 18 microns. Yeah. So what would be the micron count of this virgin wool?
So 19.5 to 20 is usually where virgin sits, but normal wool sits between 21 and 22. Mm-hmm. And then once you start to get higher than that, it starts to feel a little bit coarser to the touch. And then it moves into wool that's suitable for carpets and rugs and not necessarily for hand knit.
Right. And so you can have, this is the thing I think a lot of people don't understand. You can have a merino yarn at a very high micron count that's not soft at all.
No, exactly.
So just the fact that it's merino doesn't make it a particular quality. You really have to kind of look at that micron count and sort of understand. So I think that's fabulous. Thank you for explaining.
There are fabulous guys in the wool process that can grade yarn just by touch and say, oh, that's a 19 and they're amazing. But there is machinery that does it as well now, but it used to all be done by hand.
I can tell in a skein. I can tell the difference between an fine merino and fine merino.
There is a difference, definitely.
Oh yeah. But it does take time. You have to kind of be used to handling it. So whatever the micron count, I can tell you that this yarn is spectacular. And this is the yarn that is used in so many of the beautiful designs in Mode at Rowan, including these fabulous pants. I just have to point out for you guys.
Obviously not for everybody. Let's just say that.
Not for everybody, no. But I'm going to find them so that you can see that.
Just a comment from Alberta about she thought virgin wool meant non-blended. It does mean that as well, because you wouldn't blend a fine micron wool like that. There's no need to. So more often than not, virgin wool in the market is not blended.
All right. So Alberta's name is B, so she prefers B. So here are these pants that are knitted in the Alpaca Soft Dk. She just wouldn't know that. Yeah. Anyway, aren't these fabulous? And if you're going to knit pants.
Yeah. What happened on the shoot there? The models asked can they get them, and when we explained that no, you have to make these, they were like, "Oh, okay."
Did they all learn to knit right away?
Well, both of them could knit, actually, not to a very good level, but it just turned out that one shoot, both those models could actually knit. One of them was the dark-headed girl was a very good crocheter. So, and you do find that quite a few models are quite often like that because they sit around and waiting in shoots, so they like something to do. So.
Okay, so yes, he is a yarn sommelier. Love it.
Oh God, I don't think so.
Well, I think that's our role as yarn professionals is to, for me, not only selling the yarn, but I really have to understand it so that I can say, all right, this is the right yarn for this project, and here's why. Yeah. You probably wouldn't get those pants in Alpaca Classic. I guess you could.
You could. I don't
But
think they'd be very comfortable. I think they're better in the soft. I mean,
yeah,
I'm the same for me. It's like it's part of my history, so I do know it. But I guess I'm the same as you, Ellen. I'm not going to stand in front of somebody and talk about it without having the knowledge. It's just that's,
yeah, yeah. And if I don't know, I'm going to find out.
exactly. And I'm not afraid to say I don't know either. That's the thing. If I don't know, I will find out. So
Yeah. Okay, so now here's the one that I think you all are like super excited. If you're knitting, if you're trying to catch up or you're not knitting or whatever, this is a brand new yarn for Rowan and it is absolutely spectacular. And it just arrived yesterday here in the shop and I got some of the most fabulous colors. It needs no introduction.
drum
It
roll.
is the pure cashmere. So I know David spoke about this at one of our other webcast, but I would love to hear you talk about this again, David, because this is such a beautiful story.
So pure cashmere. We wanted a pure cashmere, but we went out to find the best. It's done with Todd and Duncan, who are on the shores of Loch Leven, which is in Scotland, just north of Edinburgh. I am from Edinburgh, and this is part of my homeland. We were at the show in Italy, and Sharon has knitted with Todd and Duncan before because she knitted some garments in this cashmere for Phantom of the Opera many, many years ago when she was knitting for these shows. And she said, oh, do you know, that company is the best cashmere. And they don't actually do knitwear. They don't do hand knit yarn. It's all machine knit they supply. And I said, well, why don't we just go and ask? Or what can they say? All they can say is, no, we're not going to do it. So we went in and we had a little chat. And then all of a sudden we looked up and we realized that we were surrounded by quite a few people. And we got introduced to the MD and all this sort of stuff. And they very quickly realized who we were and what we were talking about. And so the story started and off we went. I have visited the factory on the shores of Loch Leven. And if you have ever felt cashmere in its raw state, it is like touching a cloud. It is just heaven on earth. It is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So they call themselves the world's best cashmere producer. Who am I to argue with that? They produce for some very high-end fashion brands that I cannot name for legal reasons, obviously. But they have they have a
Just a
massive.
little hint, maybe.
Well,
Are they Italian?
a big Italian and French, let's say that. So
Oh,
some of the big
okay.
ones you would know. Yeah.
Yes, we can guess.
Yeah. So they got a massive bank of colors. They have a huge shade card. So we worked with their colors and we worked to produce it. And we had to go find another spin house to make it into a hand knit yarn. But we absolutely feel it's worth it. So if you've got the cashmere, I don't know, that wasn't in the taster pack, Ellen, was it?
Oh, it was.
Oh, okay. So if you've got it, you can pick it up and touch it. And there is a coolness to it. And it almost feels like there's cotton in there. That is a natural fiber quality way you feel. It keeps its coolness. And that's what natural fiber does. It works in a natural environment. That's why we use it. And then it's like we were saying with cashmere before. The more you knit with this cashmere, the better it will be. I actually think the garment will be better after its first wash, to be honest.
Oh, I think so too.
And quite a lot of cashmere, that you would buy off the rail, they will say that wash in a certain way and it's beautiful. It's a personal thing of mine. I just love this cashmere. It's obviously from my homeland, and it's just really nice to see it in the range. We know it's a premium top end of the range, but there's no point for Rowan if we can't do the best that we can do. And obviously, when visiting the factory, we get to see their processes and understand that. So they wash the cashmere in the waters from the loch. So the Loch Leven water washes the cashmere. The factory is actually in a nature reserve because it's so old and established. So they take the water from the loch, and when they put it back, it's cleaner than when they took it out.
It just gives me butterflies.
Yeah. So it just, you're up there and you're just thinking, oh, this is just beautiful, and it's ticking all the boxes. And they have a closed cashmere sourcing circle, their own cashmere sourcing, so they can assure that the animals are treated correctly. and the farmers have a fair price, and just ticks all my boxes. This pure cashmere, I
It's
love it.
it's
Can you tell?
lovely, and yeah, no, absolutely, I love it too, and I think it's one of those, like you say, when you feel it in the skein, it is tightly wound, and it doesn't
Mm,
read the same as when it's un unhanked, when it's wound into a cake, then when it's knit, and then when it's washed and worn. So yeah, it's beautiful.
mm.
And there is a whole booklet, a collection supporting this stunning yarn. And it has some really lovely sweaters. I mean, this is the kind of thing, you treat yourself sort of maybe once in a lifetime to a beautiful cashmere hand knit sweater, and the process of knitting that cashmere is a treat in itself. And then
Yeah.
you have it for years and years and years, for forever. It's so beautiful. I have a
Mm.
question, David,
In
about
that collection, we've
cashmere.
also sorry,
Good.
I was just going to say, in that cashmere collection, we have a range of garments. So there's sweaters, but there's also some smaller pieces too, because obviously we've been very conscious of cost to knit. So everybody can have a little bit of the luxury in there.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's a good point. There are mitts, there are little scarves, there's like a little head warmer. There are
Yeah.
one skein projects in
Mhm.
there that just, what would be more fabulous than just one skein of it on your hands all the time? So you could just wear that. So that'd be beautiful. My question about cashmere is, I know that on alpacas or whatever, there's a difference between the fleece that's taken from different parts of the animal, like the belly fur on, I guess, alpaca is different than the fur
Yep.
on the back or whatever. How does
Yep.
that work with cashmere? Is it the same?
It's the same sort of thing, because alpaca and cashmere cashmere is a goat, but alpaca, they're the same derivative family. But the cashmere fiber themselves, they tend. So if you've ever noticed, Rowan have sometimes done something called Suri Alpaca. So that
Mhm.
is where they've actually selected the fiber, the special fiber from a particular part of the clip from the body, and that means it's the softest it can possibly be. You do get that with cashmere, but what tends to happen is cashmere is so soft microned anyway, it all just blends into one micron. So you wouldn't really see a Suri cashmere. It doesn't happen, because
Hmm.
it's just a beautiful fiber anyway. I
Okay.
mean, the reason cashmere and cashmere goats and so forth works is, and where they come from, is just the quality of the food and the greenery that they eat makes a big difference to the fiber. It's the same with anything from the Falkland Islands, because they are so lush and green and pure mountain air and clean, and it just makes a difference to the fiber that is eventually produced.
Yeah. So you mentioned that, I think about Scotland, I think a lot of people think Scotland and it's very far north. And I know I was there one June and there was still snow on the mountains.
Mm.
But there are parts of Scotland that are almost tropical with the way the jet stream
Yeah,
comes down. I
yeah,
think that's just fascinating.
yeah. There's some gardens further north that actually have quite tropical plants in, because they are actually on a warm airstream, which is really
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Have you been there?
Mm. I haven't actually, not to those. They're on my list.
That would be fun. So is everybody liking? Hey, Kathy,
Yeah.
thanks for joining us. Um, hey, Heidi, is everybody liking the pure cashmere? So the next one
Oh,
now.
cashmere is on it. Sorry, there's a quick question about the needle size. It's a
Oh,
3.75 millimeter needle. That's what we are saying it's on.
it's a US 5.
Yeah, US 5. Sorry, I'm
It's
forgetting
fun.
who I'm talking to.
I think most of our knitters kind of know that, but I think that it's
Yeah.
an immediate.
Mm,
Plus, this will be on YouTube for forever, so I think people from all over will have
yeah.
a
True.
chance to see it and
Very true.
want to know. So I always put both. Um, so Kid Classic, I love this yarn.
Yeah.
That's been in the line for a long, long time, right?
Yeah, it's been in the line ever since I've been with Rowan, which is coming up 13 years now, which is a long time. Feels like a long time. And it's one that it does tend to go in and out of love with people so far. But it never seems to go away totally. It's just a really good natural fiber workaday yarn. It does have some polyamide in it, but that's because of the construction, so it works better. And I have to say, quite a lot of the Rowan design team, this is their favorite yarn because it's just a really good core basic yarn to work with.
I love it. I'm knitting the cowl cardigan from last season with it, and it's beautiful. Now it's mohair, which is from a goat, and cashmere is from a goat, but they're clearly very different goats.
Yes, well, they look very different to the eye, but you know, how different is one goat to the other is, I'm not an expert on that at all. So
Maybe if you were a goat, you would know.
yeah. So I mean, cashmere obviously is pulled from globally. A lot of it is Eastern, but mohair, most of our mohair, in fact, all of it now comes from South Africa, and we're part of the Mohair Federation of Sourcing. And basically, where we get our mohair from means that the federation makes sure that, again, like the cashmere, that the farms are treated correctly and the animals are treated correctly, and they do spot checks on the farms and spot checks on the animals. And so again, it's this thing about cross-checking our fiber source again.
Is this the same kind of mohair at a different gauge and a different construction that you would find in Kid Silk Haze, or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I think it's, go ahead.
It's just different, exactly what you said, different gauge, different count, and then what they do with it in the spin process as well.
Mm-hmm. So the Kid Silk Haze is a very fine count because it's
Yes.
extra fine, whatever.
But then also Kid Silk Haze is mixed with silk as well, which gives it a finer touch as well. So.
Yeah. Now I love it. I think it's really pretty. And you look at it and you think it's going to be itchy, but it's not. It's wonderfully soft. And it's a single ply. So it's definitely a yarn that you want to block after you have worked it, because there is a tiny tendency to bias. I don't know if you've noticed that. Maybe it's just the way I knit, but
yeah,
I've had a little tendency to bias, but it's nothing that a good block won't take care of permanently.
No.
So it's beautiful to knit with. It's very light, a lot of yardage for the weight. The garment that I'm making, I'm sure most of you saw it last season. It's the cardigan with the cowl built in. It's a beautiful swingy, and it takes like 15 skeins, but it's still very light to wear, very comfortable and cozy. So yeah, I think that's a beautiful garment.
Light and warm.
Yeah. Yeah, and very luxe. It has just a smidge of a halo. And again, in that book, Haze, they've combined Kid Classic with Kid Silk Haze, which is a stunning, a very unexpected combination, but it's just beautiful. You get a really ethereal Aran gauge, so 16 stitches over 4 inches with those two together. It's really, really pretty. Were you surprised to see those two put together?
Yeah, and it's one of those things when somebody puts it together and then the team pick it up and they're like, what yarn's that? And then we all start thinking, oh, that feels amazing. And there's this whole conversation kicks off about blending yarns together. And we've actually done that quite a bit in the last few years at Rowan. And it's just the designers starting to play with, oh, I think that'll work with, and you're effectively creating your own yarn, which is they love.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, Kid Silk Haze to me, which was in the last tasting pack, if you got that, Kid Silk Haze is a perfect carry along. It's wonderful with, you could put it with Alpaca Classic. You could put it with Alpaca Soft Dk. You could put it with, it's really pretty is the Soft Yak Dk. That combination, Kim Hargreaves has used several times. And I think actually Gwen is knitting Stroll with that combination, which is just beautiful.
Yeah.
But sorry, we're off track.
So we do have a couple of questions just to quickly answer. That's
yes,
right. Jamie's saying that the cashmere is easier and nicer to work with than you expected. So, which is nice, and that's exactly what I would say. Is once you've got it on your needles, it just glides beautifully, and it's one of those things. It's a really good taster yarn because you'll get a feel for it. And Kathy's asking about the fiber from the fluffy bunnies. That's Angora.
Yes.
We did have an Angora haze for a while, but we checked our sourcing and we decided that it wasn't meeting our standards. So that yarn was pulled. And that just what that does for me is reinforces that I work for a company that is prepared to take the difficult decisions. And we did make a difficult decision, but we decided it wasn't up to our standards, and we're not prepared to accept that. So that was it.
Thank you. I love that. I do love me a good Angora. So maybe that's something. All right. So Gwen says the back of Stroll is finished. Super excited to hear that. That's a beautiful one. All right, Marcia. Okay, so here's a question. And this is a confusion a lot of people have. So let's chat about that.
There are Angora goats, and you can get it from goats as well. The Angora that we had was coming from bunnies in France. The Angora sourcing for goats doesn't produce as much fiber as the bunny farming, so it tends to not be from goats. It's always worth just checking, because the goat Angora is not as soft, but it usually does mean that the animal's better treated. Sorry.
It's this different fiber though, right? Oh, I was putting them up because somebody's at the door. So they're different animals. I mean, it's not the same fiber at all, is it? Angora goat is... I'm confused.
Okay. Let me just double check and I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Let me check my sources.
All right. Okay. Yes, Valerie, did you order the tasting pack? I would love to send one out to you so that you can try this. Or if you're local, I would love to have you come by and try it or see it on your hand. Okay. All right. So we talked about Kid Classic. The next one is brushed fleece, which is a bulky, very light fiber, So does everybody have that? How many of you, it's been around for a good bit, and I know that some of you probably have knit things with brushed fleece. This is perfect if you want to knit this up on a US 10.5. I think it's kind of its sweet spot for the gauge. And I would love to hear what you think about this. This, again, is going to be a very light, bulky but light, which you don't often see, and I think it has to do with the construction, right, David, on the brushed fleece? I'm sorry, I have sent you off on a rabbit hole about the Angora, haven't I?
No. Okay, so I've just double checked it. So more often than not, Angora goats actually produce mohair. So there's the difference. And that's why it's a different fiber. But most Angora that you see in any market is sourced from rabbits.
Yeah, and I think that rabbits, you can comb them or you can clip them. And I think that it's
exactly
really hard to get.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, they can be combed and clipped, and that's absolutely fine. And there is ethical producers there. It's just when we did it, we checked our sourcing chain, and we weren't happy with what we saw. So.
Yes. And I think your customers appreciate that, as I do. Yeah. So love that. So we were talking about brushed fleece, and brushed fleece construction is that also a tube yarn? Or
sorry,
no?
What we dropped to brush fleece. Brush fleece is kind of it's not a tube. It is a more modern technique. Production process, so that's why it's one of those. It's like where they shoot the yarn with air, and that makes it. If you touch brush fleece, it feels soft and light, and that's just because in the process it has been shot with air. So there's it's not as densely fibered as as a normal spin yarn. Yeah, we call
I've heard that called a blown yarn.
You broke up there. Sorry.
A blown yarn.
A blown yarn, yeah. It's a blown yarn, or quite a lot of the Italian spin houses call it sifili, and that just means it's a trademarked process where they're shooting air into the yarn.
Oh, cool. So that's lovely and light, and there are a number of beautiful designs using brushed fleece in the mode at Rowan Collection. So I want to kind of hurry through these last two so that we can get to the Merino Aria and the soft boucle. Big wool. So Big Wool is having a bit of a moment at Rowan, yes? Or is it always classically?
It's
Everybody loves
always
it.
it's one of our core. Everybody loves it. It's kind of one of those ones that's always been a really good work and always been around for us. And if we do a collection for it, people seem to love it and return to it. We've done a brights. We've added some bright colors to the palette. Big Wool's been in the collection ever since I can remember, a long, long time. And it's 100% wool. It is a merino wool, and it's just a more traditional spin. So you can see it when you look. If you actually look at it, it's got a traditional twist on the yarn, and it's just a really good workaday yarn in a bulky way.
It's beautiful, and it's very, very soft and silky. I mean, you really see the sheen of that fiber in there. You know, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous yarn. And there are a number of garments. There's a beautiful coat in the Mode at Rowan collection, and the Blogger's Edit has a few wonderful designs for it. So yeah, and the neon colors are spectacular. Yeah, absolutely spectacular. This is very, very fun. I just wanted to share this comment with you, David.
I saw that one. You buy
You gotta love
anything
it. Okay, and Terry, I know, has just finished a sweater. Yep. So very, very fun. Okay, so now 2 new yarns that Rowan came out with this season, and they are both spectacular. David, which one do you want to do first? Do you want to do Merino Aria or Soft Dk?
We can do Aria. So Aria is a new for the season, as Ellen said. I've got a little shade card here that shows you all the colors on it, and I'm not holding it up into the camera. I can't see what I'm doing. That way.
Let me go grab the colors. Okay. Yeah.
So you can just see that there's a good range of colors there into the autumnal with the light pinks and whites in there too. It's one of those modern production yarns as well. So it actually has trying to figure out the camera.
Yeah.
It's got a light construction on it too, and it's not a traditional spin, it's more a constructed yarn. So if you look at it really closely, it's almost like a chainette. But as we said earlier, if you just pull a little, when these chainettes come in, it actually gives a little bit of elasticity to the yarn as well. It gives you a little bit of movement. But what it does, it manages to keep its softness. So, and obviously chainettes reduce pilling and all those nasty little things that happen to natural fiber yarns. It's called Merino Aria because it's merino wool. And Aria is Italian for air. And that's because it's just a super light, bulky yarn.
This is a scarf that Ginny Stein whipped up. This is one of the ones in the Merino Aria collection. This is 7 skeins, and it is so light. You know, it just weighs nothing, and the stitch definition on it is just spectacular. So there are a number of designs in the collection just for this yarn that take advantage of that. There's one that has a little kind of a V inset at the side with a little stitch pattern. It really does just showcase your stitch work beautifully.
Yeah. Because of the construction, it takes those stitch and the texture really well. And those designs are by Georgia Farrell, who's a up-and-coming designer for us.
She's wonderful. Isn't she the one that's an architect?
She's inspired by architecture.
Okay.
So but she actually, she's not an architect. She went to fashion college, but she worked for us for years in the Liberty store, and we've sponsored her final collection. So she's one of those designers that we've helped progress through.
I love that Rowan does that. I call them the Rowan stable. I love that you kind of you find and support and curry these young designers and give them a start. And then, in return, they are just such an asset to the collection and to us, to knitters. It's just tremendous. Yeah. So guys, this is a brand new yarn. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's one of the things that I like doing as well, just spotting talent and nurturing it and working with it. So hopefully we've got some more coming your way very soon.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fun. So where do you find them? Do you go to Rowan? Do you go to fashion school and
Oh,
say, "Hey, everybody"?
yeah.
How do you do
We
that?
go to we watch people, we watch what they're doing, we watch them online. I tend to go to some of the graduate shows that we get invited to because once you're known in the universities that you actually support young designers, you tend to get added to these lists and get added to. And then there is just people that, like some of our older designers, they go and teach at university, so we get to spot people that way as well. So there's lots of different ways, and obviously, just sometimes it's just people we've met at trade shows and fairs and stuff like that, where we've just gone, there is something there. So,
Nice. It's sort of like Project Runway.
well, yeah, kind of.
So that's great. Okay, so it feels like a hug. So light. Whoops.
Good. I'm glad that's exactly. It's a good yard. It feels like a hug. That's nice.
Yeah. So Terry, I do have all the colors and I have lots and lots of them, sweater quantities, as you know, we're a sweater store. So sweater quantities of Merino Aria. And I'm going to be putting out one of their designs as our sweater of the week for the folks who signed up for information about Rowan through the newsletter. So it's not too late to do that if you wanted to do that. Hi, Joan. Thanks for joining us. So the last one is Soft Boucle. Let's chat about Soft Boucle.
Well, Boucle itself as a yarn, as a development, is something that's come in and out for Rowan. It's been around and then gone and come back again. But I don't know, there's a huge trend for this teddy bear look, this teddy bear coat and teddy bear gilets and just that fluffy look. So that's why we brought it back. Mode, the designers at Mode were very keen for us to have this in, and you can see they've used it extensively in their collection this year. So it's just, there's not a lot to say about it really. It does exactly what it says on the tin. That's why it's called Soft Boucle, because that's what it is. There is obviously a 10% polyamide in there, and that's for construction reasons again, that we go with the non-natural fiber. You do get 100 meters to your ball, so it's actually quite a long boucle, because boucle does tend to be a shorter yarn because of the way it's constructed and the loops in it. You don't tend to get as much on the ball, but this one's quite long. And it's a bit of a, how can I say it? Some people love boucle, some people don't. But
An
again,
acquired taste.
yeah, I would encourage you to try it on different size needles for yourselves as well, because because it's quite a fluffy light yarn. It'll take a lot of playing with and just see what you like best and what knitted fiber suits you personally.
So Mary, our accessory queen, knit up this beautiful scarf, which is one of the designs in the pattern booklet for the yarn. It's just a stockinette scarf with this really luxe fringe. And I am actually working on the gilet. And just from a knitter's standpoint, I find it very lovely in my hands. It's beautiful to knit with. I don't tend to be a loose knitter, but I have found that I need to go down a needle size because I tend to want to pull each little bit out. A lot of times boucle, I mean, it really just sort of, sometimes it's just a bunching of the yarn and you get these loops. But with this soft boucle, if you look at it, you have these sort of free strands of the alpaca fiber that that come out like ringlets or tendrils from the fiber. So it's very silky. That makes it very, very silky and very soft to knit with. And the fabric is just so delicious. I mean, it's really, really lovely and light. I am excited about it. I think it's great for accessories. I think it's also really great for some of these cozy sweaters that Trisha had talked about. It's just a beautiful yarn, and I hope you like knitting the little sample. If it hasn't come yet, it will. If you haven't picked up yours from the shop yet, if you're local, I do have those here for you, but they should be coming soon. And I do hope that you like it as much as I do. I do think, as David says, you want to try it on a variety of needles. It's very tempting to go ahead and stick it on a big big needle, but you get a different quality of fabric when you put it on even a 5mm US 8 needle, as I'm doing for the gilet, which is still giving me a chunky gauge, but really lovely fabric. And it's different in stockinette than it is in seed stitch, that it is in reverse stockinette. So yeah. So I think it would be really pretty in reverse.
Yeah, it's definitely one to play with, because different stitches, because you've got the loops on it, make it look very different in a boucle yarn. I think this will make a really good like gift cowl size. So it's not a lot of knitting, but it's really soft and really nice to wear around your neck in the winter.
Oh yeah, this is something you definitely want around your neck. So I hope that you have enjoyed this little walk through Rowan's core yarns. David is already, you're hard at work, you say, on next fall already.
Yep.
Hard to rein yourself back in.
Yeah. We've set what we're doing for autumn winter, because hopefully we would like to get some shoots done before the end of the year and then into the start of next year, because we actually start previewing it to our markets in February, March next year. So we're always way ahead.
Yeah.
I am wearing Lee from Martin Story's collection from last season. Well spotted. Congratulations. Top of the class.
Is that, oh yes. Is this in the Soft Jack DK?
It's in Soft Jack DK.
Yes.
Which is my personal favorite at the moment, because it's so versatile and just takes the stitch, and it's really light but cool to wear. And yeah, so I have a few in Soft Jack at the moment.
Yeah, it's a beautiful yarn. It's a great transitional yarn. That's the yarn that I used for the My First Sweater virtual class that is available, and it's beautiful. It's a cotton that knits like a wool.
Exactly. It actually, but it looks like a wool, but it's actually cool and cooler to wear against your skin as well. It's a lovely yarn. I really like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I've taken enough of your time, but I do appreciate you joining me, David. Thank you so much. And
No
I
problem.
thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope that you've learned a lot. I hope that you've had fun, and I hope that you've been inspired. I will be back next Wednesday. I'm going to be looking through, I think, the Cashmere collection. You know how I do on Wednesday nights. I'll just go through the collection and we'll talk about what they are and how they're constructed and how they're knit and all that stuff. So I'll be doing that on Wednesday night, and I look forward to seeing you. If you have questions, or if you would like to order the yarn tasting kit, you can do that at crazyforyou.com. And until I talk to you again, keep knitting and create something beautiful. Bye now.
Thank you. Thank you for all your lovely comments.